Mohamed Abdullahi met with his Israeli counterpart Isaac Herzog in Jerusalem over the weekend during his first official state visit to Israel. The visit comes months after Israel formally recognized Somaliland as an independent state. Discussions between the two leaders focused on strengthening bilateral relations following Tel Aviv's recognition of Somaliland. Now, the visit also follows the recent appointment of Israel's first ambassador to Somaliland, a move reciprocated by Somaliland through the appointment of its own envoy to Israel. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by Advocate Sipho Mantula, a researcher at the Thabo Mbeki School of Public and International Affairs. Advocate Mantula, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Afternoon to Lulu, even to your listeners of Africa Update.
Now, Advocate, what message does this visit send to Somalia, the African Union, and other African nations that have not recognized Somaliland?
A very complex visit, as you have alluded, that 6 months later after Israel recognized that state of Somaliland in 2025 towards the end of the year. It has caused tension in the EU circles. There were many communities that came from Addis Ababa. But when you look at this visit, it has also a complexity of contradictions of that even the high-level delegation going to be engaging on political, economic and security issues and setting up of an embassy in Jerusalem, considering that there is still a conflict between Israel and Palestine, Israel and Iran, and the USA. Now, this visit, as we know very well, that the issue of the secession or the separation of Somaliland from Somalia, it has been a highly contested issue within the AU, within the UN forums. But this visit, it is raising concern. Like I said to you, he might have been going there for 5 days to engage with Israel, but there are already geopolitical tensions that might question Somaliland's visit.
Just, further complications between Somaliland and Somalia are an issue that cannot be changed. How may neighboring countries such as Ethiopia and Djibouti view this growing relationship?
Absolutely, there will be concern, even if we know that there's an AU summit end of this month in Cairo, in Egypt. They might have to be looking at those relations. And as you said, the immediate neighbors will be the first to catch that concern and that impact. But it is important to look also at how Somaliland has positioned itself as a sovereign state, as they have alluded that they have their own currency, they have their own army, but what they've been lacking is international recognition. And hence you find this this visit becoming important for Somaliland more than Somalia and the neighboring countries. It will be an impact in terms of what I said earlier in my intro of the geopolitical tensions that we are seeing in the geopolitics of the Persian Gulf, with Israel being one of the alleged perpetrators of human rights violations, both in Palestine as well as in Iran. So I don't think Somaliland has considered how this visit also it will have an impact on its neighboring countries, as you have alluded, Djibouti and Ethiopia, and also their immediate neighbor, which is Somalia.
And could Israel's engagement with Somaliland alter its diplomatic standing across Africa?
Others have said so before, but I don't think Israel has an impact per se, rather than when the then Minister of International Relations in South Africa, Naledi Pandor, you will recall his Lulu at the AU summit, was very vocal to also request the Israeli diplomat to leave the AU summit. For me, it is the issue of how will the AU look at this posture of Somaliland. What will be its implications to the regional economic bodies, the same like COMESA, the same like the Arab League? What will be this relation of Tel Aviv towards the African continent? Despite that, we know most of the African countries like Ethiopia, Kenya, they've been having bilaterals with Israel, but not in this fashion that we see from Somaliland, by also establishing diplomatic embassies. So it will be a threat to the AU also with how Israel is positioning itself. But we know very well that with South Africa's case before the ICJ, it is also pushing weight to the AU to be in support of South Africa's case against Israel in terms of occupation of Palestine.
And what impact could the Israel-Somaliland partnership have on security dynamics within the Horn of Africa?
It will be seen as they are going to be signing those MOUs. Like I said to you, the high-level delegation include the Ministry of Defense in this team. It will have an impact, by the way. We cannot ignore the influence of Israel also in these conflicts that are happening globally, but also within the Horn of Africa. It will have an impact in the conflict between Ethiopia and Sudan on the question of the Great Renaissance Dam. The impact in the northern part of Ethiopia as they are just coming out of elections now. So it will be the government of Abiy Ahmed. Once the election results have been pronounced, how will they deal with this threat towards the Horn of Africa? Because the Horn of Africa is part of the regional economic bodies of the AU, and definitely the AU will be concerned. But for security reasons, the impact will also be what influence will Israel push towards its interest on Somaliland when actually Somalia does not recognize Somaliland even at the UN forum.
And Advocate, just in wrapping up, beyond diplomatic recognition, what practical benefits could Somaliland gain from closer ties with Israel?
They will benefit in terms of their national interest, in terms of their bilateral agreements that they'll be signing off as they are looking at even technology, they are looking at health, they are looking at education. So it will be a member state to member state. I think the benefit that Somaliland is looking at is in terms of their security, it's in terms of their development. And we'll wait and see after the post of the visit what were the inroads or what were the key mileages that were signed between the two countries. But like I said to you, it is important that the AU is watching closely this visit of the president of Somaliland to Tel Aviv.
Advocate Mantula, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Asante sana.
That's Advocate Sipho Mantula, a researcher at the Thabo Mbeki School of Public and International Affairs, joining us on the line. It is 12:30 Central African Time, and our news headlines up next.
SABC